Welcome to the session on strategies for protecting IoT devices and networks from cyber attacks. My name is Russ Schafer from Checkpoint. I'm head of product marketing for security platforms. And today we're going to talk about how IoT devices are deployed, the security risks associated with them, and how to mitigate those risks. We'll talk about enterprise, healthcare, and industrial environments. IoT devices are integrated everywhere. IDC estimates there will be 41 billion connected IoT devices in the next few years. 127 IoT devices are connected to the internet every second. So I'm sure that estimate is probably low. What kind of environments are IoT devices deployed? We see a number of examples here, including smart buildings like cameras, industrial OT or operational technology like manufacturing equipment, medical devices like fusion pumps or MRI machines, smart office like conference room telephones, conference room smart TVs and cameras, critical infrastructure such as water plants, utilities, transportation, and smart cities, including building management systems. How many IoT devices are deployed inside a typical company? Let's look at 3 different use cases. Enterprises with approximately 5,000 employees, like Checkpoint, has around 20,000 IoT devices. Hospitals with around 500 beds has around 10,000 IoT devices. In factories with around 2,000 workers, 5,000 industrial IoT devices. As you can see, there's lots of devices to determine their risk, track them, secure them, and make sure they're used properly. So what's happening in the security area? IoT cyber attacks are accelerating. As you can see, 67% of enterprises have had a security incident, 82% of medical companies. And since 2019, over a 2,000% increase on attacks on manufacturing and critical infrastructure, both OT and ICS environments. So a huge increase in threats, and it's not slowing down. Let's look at some examples. Every IoT sector is at risk. And when these attacks happen, they're a major disruption. Healthcare is probably one of the biggest sectors that's under attack, even most recently. The FBI warned a couple of weeks ago that there's going to be a huge increase in ransomware attacks on the entire healthcare system. The Department of Homeland Security listed 21 vulnerable medical devices back in June that are ripe for a cyber attack. And the enterprise side, hackers are exploiting IP phones, printers, and even lighting to access the network and spy on companies. On the industrial side, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of attacks. Steel company example here with a ransomware attack that started as a phishing attack on the IT side and actually made its way over to the operational technology side and shut down the facility for multiple days. So as you can see, these attacks are not only hugely disruptive, but have a big impact on company operation. And the healthcare can actually impact health. One of the common examples that are brought up is the lighting side. So Checkpoint research found that the Zigbee protocol was being accessed, and it's been used very prevalently over the last number of years, decades in being used across different systems to wirelessly communicate. And hackers have found it to be an easy target for getting into. So we call it the dark side of smart lighting. We were able to identify that the protocol allows hackers to get in and deliver ransomware or even spyware to networks, both compromising the light bulbs and their controllers. So something as simple as lighting can be used to access a network and cause damage. So why are IoT devices so easy to hack into? Well, it's kind of the way they're built. They're physically accessible. As you can see, this hospital example, used on a very frequent basis by many different people. They run on legacy OSs. A lot of the manufacturing equipment runs on Windows 95, and that's actually no longer supported by Microsoft, and it becomes a ripe target for hackers. They know all these things, and they use those weak, vulnerable spots to get in. No built-in security. A lot of these actual devices never were meant to be connected to the internet, so the security either exists in a small way or it doesn't exist at all. In most cases, not at all. They're also difficult to patch. A lot of these devices are regulatory controlled, whether it be industrial equipment or medical. And if you do any big, huge changes, you have to resubmit them because that could impact the operation of the device itself. So that makes it a huge impediment to actually patching these devices. And then, of course, weak passwords. When's the last time you changed the password for an IoT device? In most cases, they use the default, and hackers, of course, know that. So how do you tackle all these challenges? Of course, IoT's got tremendous productivity benefits. It's been a huge boon and will continue to be with us for many, many years. But the device as you count will get bigger and bigger and bigger. We've got to figure out a manageable way to address IoT security because the The downsides are huge, as you've seen from the examples. There's 5 steps to comprehensive IoT security. First is automatically identify and classify the IoT device and the risk level. So understand what you have out there in the network is the first step. And then be able to understand the vulnerabilities and creating a risk score. Second, create a policy that segments your IoT and OT networks. So your IoT devices on one side, IoT networks on one side. So the attack that I mentioned earlier, the ransomware attack that came from the IT side and breached over to the OT side won't happen because you've got this actual network segment, and keep your policy reinforcing that. Third, leverage IoT adaptive threat prevention and access control to reduce attack surface. So you want to have the threat prevention adapt to the changes that are going on and make sure it continues to adhere to the policy as you add new devices or new threats come. Fourth, you want to actually look at the traffic. You want to monitor the traffic that's going on between the devices. Just setting a policy isn't good enough. You need to actually monitor and look for anomalies. You can prevent the known attacks, but looking for anomalies actually helps you discover those that you don't know about. By monitoring the traffic, make sure an MRI machine is not talking to an infusion pump when all it needs to do is talk to the image server and upload its latest MRI image. That should be what it should be doing, not something outside of that. So you basically make the policy very strict so those devices only do what they're supposed to do. And fifth, leverage threat intelligence to adapt security. As I mentioned, the FBI warning about ransomware attacks just came out a few weeks ago. Seems like there's one every month or so, or even more frequently. So you got to have adaptive security that understands the latest threats and changes your approach and your posture to protect against those. And most importantly, it's not one of our 5 steps, but it kind of gets to be said across all these items. You need to increase security without impacting operations, because these operations need to continue to produce what they're supposed to be producing, not be impacted or obstructed by security. So it has to be seamless. So those in the manufacturing side, for example, won't see a dip in the productivity because of security. You just see better protection. And that's the key. You got to find that balance. So IoT Protect provides a preventative system that adapts to the latest threats to IoT devices and can be deployed everywhere across enterprise, healthcare, and industrial. Now, let me take you through the key components of how it works. First, there's IoT Discovery and Risk Analysis. That is what I mentioned earlier. You want to basically be able to get an inventory of all the devices out there, assess their vulnerabilities, develop a policy that actually prevents against breaches against those vulnerabilities. And then second, implement a network strategy that allows you to segment those devices as much as possible and deploy the security policy and keep it enforced where you're not trusting any communication between devices. It's a zero trust approach. We basically don't trust and always verify whether that particular device has the credentials to access what it's accessing. So you don't want that MRI machine talking to an infusion pump. You want it talking to the image server, doing what it's supposed to be doing. So you monitor traffic to make sure that's not happening. And then have a comprehensive threat prevention system focused on IoT that keeps up the latest threats, pulls in all the information around the world about what's going on, and then applies those changes to your network so you're always protected against the latest threats. Let's look at each one of these in more detail. IoT Discovery and Analysis. First is, how do you identify all these devices? As I mentioned earlier, there's tens of thousands of devices potentially per company. So how do you get a handle on all that? So we have a system that automatically identifies and classifies every IoT device, whether it's smart buildings such as thermostats, IP cameras, smart elevators, or in the office, printers, TVs, phones, healthcare, patient monitors, infusion pumps, MRI machines, and the vast array of operational technology that's out there today. So the system looks at all those and gives you a complete detailed assessment of the device, what it has, what its vulnerabilities are, and then what the recommended policy is to protect against security risk. So how do we do that? We get really granular visibility into each of the devices because of some of the partners we're working with that have been studying each of these individual markets and have very strong expertise. Good examples of our partners in industrial is Clarity, Order, in the medical, Medigate, and the medical, Armis, and enterprise and other segments. So we have the leading discovery engines, of course, a number of other partners below there as well that provide us deep integration, and we resell the partners up there on the top, the strategic partners, as part of a checkpoint solution and partner with the others. So whatever works for you in your particular situation, we're able to connect into it, get that information, then ingest that into our policy-making system, create a policy automatically, deploy that across the network, segment your systems, and then keep it up to date with real-time threat prevention updates that keep abreast of the latest threats. That's how it works. So let's take the next step into looking into how these profiles work. How do you assess risk? So you classify every device based upon what we call risk profile. So you'll see this is an MRI machine. You have the manufacturer, the model, the building, floor, location, all the information about where it's at. Then, of course, all the key security issues. What's the criticality? What's the known vulnerabilities? What kind of network configurations does it have? Does it have a good password? So you look at all those different things to make sure it's communicating to the right network devices. It has a strong password. It's protecting its known vulnerabilities, and that it's kept up and running all the time. So all those components work together, creating this risk score that allow you to basically profile the devices and then create a policy that protects against it. Now, besides just discovering what you have out there, if you want to take the next level deep into it, you want to actually look at the firmware itself of the device. You can actually uncover other things specific to the device itself, weaker known credentials, known vulnerabilities inside the device itself, the firmware, the actual firmware of the device it operates in, software misconfigurations, and look at actually things that it might be doing, like doing memory movement that's not supposed to be there, or doing network resource access and it's not supposed to be there. We can assess that and give you a complete detailed report. So if you're interested, get a free IoT firmware assessment, upload your firmware to checkpoint.com, IoT Protect, and then we'll get a detailed report mailed to you. You see the place to go, products, IoT security, and then you'll get to that report, click on, put your information in there, and you'll get a free IoT firmware assessment, which will give you even a more detailed look at how risky your devices are. All right, so now we've done all the discovery, we've got a great handle on our devices. Now, how do we actually then apply that to a security policy and a network segmentation strategy? So that's our zero trust segmentation approach. The key things you want to do with zero trust is to minimize your IoT attack surface. And how do you do that? First, you prevent unauthorized access and malicious internet from reaching these IoT devices. So keep people from getting from the outside into the inside. And then if a device gets infected, you want to make sure it stays isolated. You don't want it to secondly infect other devices by moving east and west through the network and getting access to data that you don't want it to get access to. So first, don't let them in. Second, don't let them move around once they're in. So your strategy should protect against both of those threats. So as I mentioned earlier, you get all the information about the device, and here we're actually applying the policy. You'll see an IP camera here, the different actual requirements it has, such as protocols, the actual devices is supposed to access any resources, and then they actually down the manufacturing level, what the actual updates it has, and where it should be going to get those, and what's acceptable. You see on the right-hand side, and anything that, and these are all the only things that it's able to do. So you provide this really strong IoT policy layer that's integrated into our unified management system. As you'll see here, this is our console. It's just one device of many, so it allows you to get into a unified system that unifies not only IoT, but cloud, all your network security, all your endpoint, all your mobile, all those devices into one unified management system. So you have one view of the threat landscape, and IoT just happens to be just yet another device. And how do you actually sort of manage that, and especially managing the network? So we have control over 1,600 IoT and OT protocols, apps, and commands. So we can actually monitor all the traffic. So you see here the camera, Smart Office ID, you get the VMS destination, the actual protocol that it can communicate, and you make sure that's all it can do, because you're actually trying to bring images up to the image management system. Same thing I mentioned earlier about the MRI machine. You don't want it sending images or communicating with an infusion pump. All it needs to really do is communicate with the system to actually distribute and view these images. So using the DICOM protocol. And your operational technology devices, you want to use the Modbus protocol to actually do its operation. And that only has 4 specific commands to communicate to the PLC. That's it. So there shouldn't be anything else going on. So we have the largest support in the industry for the broadest set of protocols. So anything you want to communicate or protect, we should be able to handle. So with all that information, how do you actually make this manageable? How do you create an automated profile? So 3 steps, really. IoT profiling, we just talked about all the information they pulled in from discovery engines. Look at the traffic, look at the different traffic that's going on, so how it's communicating. Pull information out there that we know about devices and vulnerabilities and some trends that are going on. Look for any kind of anomalies that are happening. And then put that all into the policy builder and get an automated policy. So you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is basically connecting all this information. We provide that to you. It's all part of our system. We spit out a policy. So here, we have a policy for the printers, what the print server can access, what the cloud print servers can access, and HP printers. All have a specific function. Only can do certain things. That's it. So you limit it and you automatically limit. That helps you with that huge volume of devices you have per enterprise, tens of thousands of devices. This is how you do it. This is how you do it so quickly and get a policy that that actually protects you against everything that might be out there to threaten those specific devices. All right, so now you've got your automated policy, you've got your discovery, all the things come together. Now, how do you basically protect against all those things? Now you have all the key things in place to make your system as secure as it can be. How do you make it active and adaptive as new threats come in and you monitor the network? So first, as you know, all these devices, most likely that are vulnerable, have to put out some kind of report that let people know that they're vulnerable. And a lot of them, just basically tell you they can't adapt them because some of them aren't made for it. You can't adapt, so basically tell you what the actual real issues are, and then kind of up to you in some cases if they can't patch them to protect against them. What do you do with that? Well, you basically make sure that that's in our system, and we look for all these things as well, so we're ahead of the game and protect you against these known vulnerabilities and put that in the system. So we create a bunch of signatures that adapt to those different issues and put that within the gateways. So the vulnerabilities that are out there, we block them. We continue to update that for our threat cloud database that searches around the world for any new updates on threats against that specific devices and adds those to those as well. And of course, our general IoT protections there's over 10,000 of those, and they support over 50 different device vendors. And of course, the authorized traffic, we want to monitor the traffic that's going on to make sure that goes through as well. So again, you don't want to inhibit the business. You want to make sure you protect against the latest threat and always keep it up to date. So virtual traffic keeps you protected from known exploits, and updates keep you updated to make sure you are aware of the latest known exploits, and monitoring the traffic itself protects you from unknown. So here's an example of the camera, all the different CVEs, the actual big vision camera, and the fact that you have active protection against the DVR exploit. So again, shows in full motion. We found that vulnerability, we protect you against it, put that in the system, and then you won't be exploited by this attack vector. Now, in addition to all those protections, if you want to actually take it to the next level, as I talked about earlier, take it into the device itself. We gave you the firmware assessment that was earlier. We actually gave you the risk assessment. Now this actually provides on-device runtime protection. So you can integrate that in the actual device and provide protection against a lot of different attacks that might be happening in the device itself, such as the shell injection, memory corruption, or controller file hijacking, all on-device activities that you can protect against. So this is the ultimate in protection on-device that takes it to the next level, and you can provide that to your IoT device, have that on with our nano agent that deploys on the device itself. So it can mitigate device level attacks before the device is compromised. All right, so let's pull it all together here. So we have Checkpoint IoT Protect Blueprint. So we told you a lot of all the different components. Let's see it actually in a practical network situation. How does it look and how does it work? So we talked about really three major components here. One of the discovery engines, which does our auto discovery, creates a security policy, does profiling based upon known and unknown vulnerabilities. Then it integrates that into our security management system, which then implements that policy, deploys it out into the security gateways using the zero trust IoT approach. Segment the network as if you can, otherwise push out the different known exploits out to the gateways themselves, update it with threat cloud, make sure that all the known and unknown traffic is monitored and blocked, monitor the traffic for anomalies, and then last but not least, take it to the next level by having on-device IoT nano agent protection that provides real-time runtime protection. So any kind of exploits that are happening on a real-time basis, you're protected against those. So let's take a look at how this is all deployed in a typical network. Let's look at a hospital. As you'll see down here at the bottom, you have all your different, very different environments. You have your OT devices, building systems, for example, your medical devices themselves, the ones that are used for patient care. You got your building, you got your elevators, you got your cameras, you got your water systems. And then you've got your smart office. So this is your kind of your IT back office. Again, you see these are all segmented. You'll see different ways of deploying them. So you've got a cloud-based system gateway for all your smart office, your back office equipment. You've got your physical gateways close to these devices on device. You have on-device runtime protection for your cameras themselves. You actually have a normal gateway here. And then here you have a combination of both our industrial gateway, which is our 1570R, which deploys in wireless environments, for example. This is the wireless model. It actually connects to these systems out here and also provides on-device runtime protection. And then that all rolls together through the network of gateways into the discovery engine here and the policy control. So this is actually how we keep track of what devices are out there, and then unified into one management system that's cloud-based that allows easy access and manage it through our Infinity portal. So one unified system across all device types, across all network resources, whether it be cloud, whether it be data center, whether it be mobile, whether it be endpoint, whether it be all these other systems, are all unified together in one management system. So you have a complete view of the threat landscape. So you know where things are happening, where things are coming. Nothing is hidden. It's all within you. So how are these different systems available and how can you get them? Well, from a gateway perspective, all the things I just showed you on the previous slide, obviously you get the different gateways. You superior is deploy as you're out to your different locations to provide your network protection. This is where software sits. It does the threat prevention, monitors your traffic. This is where you deploy it in military locations. And then when you have a ruggedized situation, harsh environments, outdoors, high temperatures or low temperatures, or dusty environments, you want to put a ruggedized gateway that performs well in those extreme environments. Or you can use virtual gateways, which are based in the cloud. You don't have to actually have any physical gateways. So that's another option. And last but not least, on-device runtime protection. So software that's a nano agent, a few lines of code that sits on the device itself. It does real-time monitoring of activity that's happening in the device to protect you against threats that are in the firmware of the actual device. So all these choices are available. They're all unified in one management system. It's up to you to choose which one works for you and based upon the environment that you need to deploy it within. All right, so let's wrap it all up at the end here with a quick summary of all the things we talked about. We've covered a lot of ground. I took you through how the IoT Discovery Engine works, how the risk analysis works, how we actually go and discover all the IoT devices out there, do an auto generation of a policy, so you can actually have a standard policy without having to do anything. So it takes care of a huge amount of the work, given there's tens of thousands of devices and many of them shadow devices you don't know about. It pulls out all the information with our specialized inventory information about all those devices, whether it be healthcare, whether it be industrial, whether it be enterprise, doesn't matter. You can pull that information in and create a policy for that. After you have that, then you want to deploy a zero trust segmentation approach to authorizing the devices to talk to each other. So if you can, you want to segment your IT network from your OT network. So you actually, or in from your IoT network. So all the different environments should be segmented from each other. So we don't see any kind of east-west attacks that start with a phishing attack in IT system and jump over, or vice versa, where we can actually protect the networks from each other. So you can only authorize the device to talk to who they should be talking to. So it's a don't trust, always verify, the zero trust approach. So we make sure each device is supposed to be talking to the other device and that we actually authorize those transactions and those communications on a regular basis and monitor all the traffic to make sure there's no anomalies. Last is to deploy a real-time threat prevention system. So you'll push out all the known threats to the IP signatures, to device threats that we know about, all out to the gateways, monitor traffic on a real-time basis, get access to our threat cloud for real-time updates on threats that are happening around the world. So you actually can deploy those and have availability of that information to protect against known and unknown threats on a real-time basis. And all of those components of this solution can be deployed across enterprise, healthcare, and industrial. Last but not least, two kind of key things for you to take as next steps. First, I mentioned earlier the firmware assessment. Go to checkpoint.com, products IoT security. Sign up for the free firmware assessment. Just upload your firmware. We'll give you a complete report, let you know all the vulnerabilities. Second is we'll also do the same thing for your network. We'll do a complete inventory of devices. We call it a pure IoT security checkup. Plug in your network, find all the devices, give you a report, all the risk profile stuff that I mentioned earlier is given to you for free. So you can give you an assessment of your risk and also give you recommendations on what you should do next to protect against those threats. How you should deploy it, how you should segment your network. So that'll all be based upon a security checkup that'll work with you directly. Again, thanks for your time today. Hope you enjoyed the session. If you want any more information, again, go to our website or send an email to IoT@sales@checkpoint.com. IoT_security_sales@checkpoint.com. Thanks a lot for your time today. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.